guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with a video discussing a few things that I don't normally talk about. Normally I talk about the opposite to what I'm going to speak about today, because today I am going to talk about all the palettes that I don't have pan on in my collection, and I do have a few. But before I jump into showing you which palettes those are, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. But let's start talking about these palettes. So this video idea was actually given to me by one of you guys. So one of my subscribers called Andrea, she commented on a video a couple weeks ago. I can't remember exactly which video, but she did a comment asking me if I do have any palettes without pan, and then maybe if I could do a video on it. And I thought that that was a great idea, because a lot of the time I focus, or like I show you a lot of my palettes that have a lot of use, but I do have a few palettes in my collection that I barely have reached for. Either they are relatively new, or it's just not a palette that I have been inspired to use, or simply randomized into any of my projects. So that's what I kind of wanted to discuss today. I think this is also a good way for me to have accountability of which palettes I need to focus on more in my collection. So without any further ado, let's just jump into the palettes. So the first palette that I have to speak about is my Anastasia Subculture palette, and this is actually the only one out of my Subculture palettes that don't have pan, which is quite good because I did pick up 3 of them, I think on Black Friday, including this one, or like around that time. And this is the only one out of those that I don't have pan on yet, as well as any other of my Anastasia palettes. I do own quite a few of them now, but this is what this palette looks like. You already have probably seen this palette, but yeah, I don't have any pans on this yet. However, I do have 3 shades that I'm currently working on different projects. I have my Electric shade and Antane, which are both in my A to C project pan, and then I also rolled in Dawn in my Pandos eyeshadows. So this will definitely be a palette that will have pan very soon, but so far I have not hit pan on any of those shades or any other in this palette. Next up, we're going to talk about Colourpop, because Colourpop is a brand that I have a lot of palettes from. It's probably the brand that I have the most eyeshadows from, and I haven't really bought anything from them recently, but I do have a lot of palettes, and I actually have 3 from them that do not have pan yet, so I do have them all here. So let's just start with the one that you just saw, which is my Just My Luck palette. This one is the monochromatic green palette, and as you can see, I don't have any pans in this palette yet. I have reached for this palette a couple times. I actually had it in a project last year. It was in my Roulette Pan collab, I believe, but that goal was only to reach for this palette like as a whole, or like overall, a couple of times, or like maybe I think it was 15 times or something like that. So I didn't hit pan on anything. As you can see, I don't have pan, but I do like this palette. It's not my favorite Colourpop palette, but I do love greens, so I am really happy to have this in my collection, and it is really a palette that I should reach for a bit more, because this is one of the, I think this is one of the oldest palettes that I have that did not have pan yet. So yeah, I definitely should try to make an effort to hit pan or get some more use out of this palette overall. Sticking with the green monochromatic palettes from Colourpop, I also have the Mint to Be palette. This one is obviously more mint toned, but again, I don't have any pans in this. This is much newer than the Just My Luck palette. I picked this up, oh goodness me, I think it might have been like a year ago now, so still not super new, but it's newer than the Just My Luck palette. I do actually have one of these shades in one of my projects, which is Mojito Mami, in the center here, and I don't have pan on it yet, as you can see, but I do have a dip, and I'm definitely counting on hitting pan on that soon. So this will then be another palette that will soon have pan, which is really exciting. And this is definitely not my favorite palette from Colourpop. I don't love this. I have been thinking about kind of depotting this and only keeping a couple shades, but I think there's a lot of shades in here that I actually do really like, but as a standalone palette, I don't think that I can get, first of all, very kind of versatile looks, but also kind of, there's not that many deep shades, there's not that many kind of, I don't know, it's just very kind of monochromatic, which I guess is the point. But yeah, I don't love this palette, so I might at some point depot this. Then the final palette from Colourpop is another one that I picked up at the same time as Mint to Be, and that is the Going Coconuts palette. I have had this in my 1 week 1 palette series last year, and I do love this palette. It's a really nice neutral palette that yeah, it leans quite like neutral, slightly cool, which I really like, and it has some really unique tones in it. So I love this palette, but I have not managed to pan on any of these shades yet, and I think the main reason for that is because none of these shades have been rolled into any of my projects, because honestly that's kind of how I pan on things the most. I also obviously have things like my A to C project pan where I chose my shades, but I did want to choose some shades then that either were older in my collection or a bit easier to pan on than Colourpop shades, because Colourpop shades, especially the mattes, take a really long time to pan on. So no pans in this yet, but I'm hoping to maybe hit pan on one of the shades sometime this year. Let's move on to the only palette that I have left out of the rest of the palettes that I haven't gotten in the last year, and that is my Saharan 2 palette from Juvia's Place. This is the only Juvia's Place palette that I don't have pan on yet, and it's a very honestly kind of neglected palette in my collection. I haven't reached for this much. I have reached for a couple of shades, but I don't think I've even reached for all of the shades in this palette, which is a shame because it's a really stunning palette and it has some absolutely gorgeous shimmer shades in this. So I do really want to make an effort to reach for this more, but it's just been a palette that I haven't thought about reaching too much for, and also again it hasn't been rolled into any of my projects, which is probably, like I said, the main reason why these don't have pan. But I will try to reach for this more in this upcoming autumn, because it is mainly an autumn palette for me, but it also has these beautiful blues which I think I can reach for now in summer. So yeah, this is a palette that I'm definitely going to try to make an effort to reach for more this year. And also another point as well is that my Juvia's Place palettes I find really easy to pan on, because although the pans look massive, they are actually quite shallow. So maybe I could try to pan on one of these shades in one of my projects, or like kind of try to focus on one of these shades just to get a pan in this palette. So the last 4 palettes that I have, like I said, all was picked up in the last year. I received them all in the last year. I'm gonna go, I guess, with the oldest palettes first, which is this one here. This is my Charlotte Tilbury Easy Eye palette in the shade, or like in the type Charlotte Darling. I actually got this free when I placed an order with Charlotte Tilbury, so I didn't pick this up, and I think maybe that's why I haven't used this. It is actually a completely untouched palette in my collection, but it's beautiful. I really like the tones in here, but like I said, it's just not been a palette that's been very exciting to me. But when we can eventually travel again, I think this will be a beautiful palette just to bring with me, because it has kind of enough variety in the mattes to make like either soft look or deeper look, and it also has 3 beautiful shimmer shades. So I do think I will get use out of this eventually, but like I said, it's just been a palette that I haven't like felt the kind of urge to reach for recently. Next up we have the Huda Beauty Gold Obsessions palette. This is one that I picked up when it came out with Cold Beauty, because it was like the first Huda Beauty palette that I really kind of felt pulled in by. I mean, okay, that's actually not true, because I really also want to pick up the Mercury Retrograde palette as well as the Light Nude Obsessions. But this is the one that I took the plunge on and actually picked up, and I do really like this palette. I had a 1 week my palette with this one as well, so I have some use in it, and actually I do have quite a few dips from that kind of week of using it. I haven't really reached for it much afterwards, but I love the tones. It's like a lot of mauve tones, golds, some kind of duochrome shades, and some of these are quite toppery, so if you don't like quite sheer sparkly shadows, this probably isn't for you. But there also are shimmer shades like these 2 right here, which are absolutely stunning and very pigmented. So it's probably not the best palette that I have in my collection, but I'm actually really happily surprised, and the mattes are very smooth as well. So no pans in this yet, but it's still relatively new, like I said, in my collection, so I'm not too worried about it. So from one gold palette to the next, the next palette I have is my Natasha Denona gold palette. This one I got for Christmas from my parents, so it was a Christmas present, and this is really embarrassing, but I actually haven't used this yet. I know. It is a stunning palette, and I've wanted this for so long, and I really should reach for it, but I've been so kind of focused on panning eyeshadows this year because I'm doing my Project 100 pans that I just haven't gotten around to reaching for this. I basically only ever reach for eyeshadows that I am panning because I have so many that I'm panning. I don't know the exact number, but I'm guessing it's like 40 eyeshadows that I'm currently panning. So that's quite a lot, and I just don't feel like I have time to reach, or like I don't feel like I can exclusively use a different palette if I do want to hit my goal of 100 pans this year. But I am gonna still try to reach for this, even if I just reach for one of these shades together with other eyeshadows. I should really reach for this because it's a beautiful palette, and I, like I said, wanted this for so long. So this is a palette that I need to make myself use soon because it's been so neglected since I got this, and it is a palette that I really treasure in my collection. Then the last palette that I have is actually one of, is it my newest? I think this might be my newest palette. I have picked up other eyeshadows since this, but it's my newest palette, and that is my BH Cosmetic Blueberry Muffin palette, and I got this from my boyfriend. He picked it up for me. He asked me if I wanted anything because, long story short, but I didn't get the Club Nebula palette the first time it restocked, and I was quite upset, so he picked this one up for me instead, just to have something new to play with. And this is what this eyeshadow palette looks like. It's a beautiful kind of blue but also neutral palette, and I really like it. I have dipped into this a couple times, but not enough yet, but again, it is relatively new in my collection. So no pans in this, which is not surprising because, like I said, it is super new, and I think this is one that I will definitely try to reach for more now when we are in spring, because I don't see this as a summer palette, and then again I think this will be very nice in winter. So yeah, this is the final palette in my collection that I don't have pan on at the moment. So like I said, those are all the palettes that I don't have pan on in my collection, and there's only actually 9 of them, so I think I do have 37 palettes at the moment. So percentage wise, that is pretty good. So that is approximately 24% of palettes that I don't have pan on, so I'm very happy with that. And like I said, a lot of these are picked up in the last year, so it's not too surprising that I don't have pan on them yet. And also I just wanted to bring up a fun fact as well, because I was looking at all the palettes that I didn't have pan on at the beginning of the year, but I now have pan on, and I actually have 6 palettes that I've hit pan on this year, or like the first pan this year. So if I filmed this video at the beginning of 2021, I would have had 6 more palettes to talk about, so 15. So at that speed I'm doing quite well, and hopefully I will have pan on most of these palettes at the end of the year. I don't think I will have pan on all of these, like, by any means, because I am focusing on other shades, and it depends on what gets rolled into my random eyeshadow products, like for example my panless eyeshadows. But I think I'm doing quite well, and I am very happy with where I'm at my kind of percentage of palettes with pan versus palettes without pan. So yeah, that is it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you're someone who tracks how many pans you have in your collection, how many palettes do you not have pan on yet? And yeah, otherwise I really hope you're having an amazing day, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye guys!